Hello and welcome to Turn Zero Loss, hosted by the Magic Engineers, where we play other games and Magic occasionally. Um, so there have been a lot of bad cards in the history of Magic the Gathering. This episode is not about those cards. This episode is about cards that are so good they are allegedly format warping. Um, in case you can't tell, this is about the latest Commander banning. Um, Four cards got hit. It's probably the biggest ban in the format's history. Mana Crypt, Dockside Extortionist, Jeweled Lotus, and Nadu. All four huge bans. We need to discuss them. That's what we're here for. Let's discuss. Let's start with good old fashioned Mana Crypt, probably the most controversial banning on this list.
Yeah, we're starting out hot on this one here of David, and in my best weatherman voice. Needless to say, that the fans of Mana Crypt are not happy. To say the least, this is one of the most backlash to any band I've ever seen in Commander.
Yeah,
Down.
there's a lot of people upset about this one. There's also I've seen kind of a split in the community. Like there's the majority of people are going to be mostly upset about this because Mana Crypt is a valuable card. The only value it has is from Commander. It has
That's,
some
that's not true necessarily.
It has some play in Vintage, but it's not going to be nearly as valuable in Vintage. Not many people play Vintage is the thing. So a lot of the value is held up by the Commander because at least as far as I know, Mana Crypt is only legal in Vintage now.
I believe it is restricted in Vintage.
Yeah, so it has some value, but I don't know if it's going to hold the weight it had before. So a lot of the investors are really mad about that. A lot of these, honestly, most of these bans are things that have made the investors very upset. And I'm fine with that because I really don't like MTG Finance community. Sorry if you are a member of the MTG Finance community, but I think it's just ridiculous how much you can pay for a piece of cardboard sometimes, and I would rather just print a proxy instead. But regardless, with Mana Crypt, I feel like this is one of the ones that I don't think it needed to be banned. I think it only was just prohibitively expensive. That was the only reason why I could think of them banning it. I know that there was also a division within which one was it? It was the rules committee. There was a division in the rules committee about some of these cards to get banned too, and I'd seen some of the discourse about that online. If you follow on X or Twitter or whatever the hell you want to call it, some of the members of the rules committee were not for these bans. They were for Docs. I know, it was a unanimous choice on Dockside and Nadu, but Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt were the two that was a much more controversial take.
Yeah, also for people directing hate towards Olivia, she was the person in the room trying to stop this. So don't go harass members of the rules committee because you don't know actually what went on in that room, whether or not we disagree or agree with these bans.
At the end of the day, it's a card game. Get over it. I get that. I get this sucks, especially if you have 600 copies of Mana Crypt sitting in your house and you just lost a bunch of money. But that's your fault for not diversifying your investment. At least in terms of Magic Finance. In terms of gameplay, you absolutely have no reason to call out people like that. That's just not okay. I'm very zero tolerance towards that, and I think that the behavior from people towards these bans, towards the rules committee or the CAG, in my opinion, has been flat out unacceptable.
Yeah, it is definitely a knee-jerk reaction from everybody when it first happened. I don't understand why the mentality goes to attacking the decision body that made that ban happen. Cards get banned all the time in various formats, and you don't see people. You really shouldn't be going after people for this. It's a card game. It's really not that deep. Some of these bans are going to be healthy for the format, but one of them, just in particular for me personally, Jeweled Lotus, that one completely makes the card useless.
I'm 2 for 2 on these bans. There's 2 I like and 2 I really dislike. Because I think Mana Crypt was fine. I didn't think it needed to be banned. Because it's it's a card that's prohibitively expensive um and runs in every deck, no problem. But at the same time, it's a card that I don't know, everybody could. It's just that it's the kind of thing where if you see the Mana Crypt, you know what kind of group you're playing in, right? Where you know, Mana Crypt is kind of like the dividing line between high power decks that really optimize themselves, or at least are more optimized than somebody who runs, I don't know, Sir Aladdin or something, Sir Aladdin or something. I don't know. It's meant to be that kind of dividing line, I feel, and I think it was good for that. And I think taking it out kind of makes that dividing line less clear. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Because again, some play groups don't have that rule zero conversation that we harp on and that we really want. Others, but you see Mana Crypt, you see, okay, this card means that you're kind of serious about this game, and I just bought a precon at my LGS the first time I'm playing Magic. Period. I there's just I don't know. I see upside to it is all, but
yeah, my biggest issue is that. So recently, and we have not reported on this, and a lot of people have. There was a big movement to actually have CEDH make their own rules committee. That has since completely fallen apart. That is basically no more, and there was a lot of controversy behind that as well. But Mana Crypt for them was their soul ring, and I think that affecting the most competitive part of the format it's been pretty. I would say it's like from what I've seen by the more competitive members of the community, they're like, there's nothing really that can replace it. People think Mana Vault can, but Mana Vault doesn't function the same way.
No, Mana Vault definitely can't. It's nowhere near as strong as Crypt is.
Yeah, but people are buying out Mana Vault right now because they don't realize that. But there's a lot of these The reason they gave was that because it provides too much acceleration at the beginning of the game, and its downside does not really hurt you at all, except in the very late game. Which honestly, I actually have seen in a lot of competitive games where that downside loses you the game. That 3 damage over time, especially when you're playing in a format like CEDH or higher powered MTG, where you're using all of your life for value. That 3 damage does matter, so it is actually a drawback in those formats too. You don't see them playing it very late because they know I'm running low on fuel and I can't risk this.
Yeah, I've seen people die to Mana Crypt triggers. It doesn't happen often, but it does happen. And I like that it has kind of that ability to punish somebody who plays careless with it. But yeah, I just don't get this ban. I don't get the Mana Crypt ban at all. I think it only hurts a small subset of the community. I know every deck can play it, but I don't think every deck will play it. Nor will every player even play it. I don't play Mana Crypt at all. Not
I would have.
Yeah.
If I hadn't gone, I was one of the very unfortunate souls that I ordered a Festival in the Box because I really like the idea of Mystery Booster 2. And in my Ixalan collector booster that came in there was a Mana Crypt. That was my most valuable card for 4 days.
Yeah.
Before it just got absolutely nuked from orbit.
It went from I think I had like a $270 version down, I think it's down to $100, which is still one of my more valuable cards. But it was like, oh, this is a bummer because I do have more powerful decks, as you guys know. And I was like, okay, I can actually, this is my turn to start slowly collecting to make my Winota deck a true CDH deck instead of a fringe that basically a budget version of it.
Yeah.
And now I'm like, well, it's we'll push that plan back a little farther, but it's just
I think this set of bans being geared towards the CDH community again, this is almost another situation where when they ban Flash.
It does feel very targeted, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Flash was much bigger of a problem.
It was a problem in the CDH community primarily. I never had words. I had never really seen it as a problem in in a more casual setting, but then again, it really depends on the decks you play, and it might have been a much more widespread problem within the community. But I don't think it really was that big of a deal. It was just another one of those. The CDH community was like, we need to ban Flash, so they banned Flash. People were in the CH community were talking about, well, maybe we should ban Dockside and Nadu. It wasn't. I don't know if it gained enough traction to ban those two, but for them to add Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt in there, it feels a little irresponsible to do it that way.
You have slowed down a format dramatically. That is basically another form. It's the palatable form of Legacy in a way, and you have now removed one of its staples, because in CEDH you're basically required to have this, and it's not because it's a powerful card, it's just because that's the speed of the format. That's the way that format runs. And it's like, whereas it's like, as I said earlier, Soul Ring is the Soul Ring of casual, Mana Crypt is the Soul Ring of casual. And by removing this and another card that we'll get to later in this list, you're slowing down a lot of decks so badly that they're no longer functional in the format.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about it's kind of that dividing line card where if you see a Mana Crypt, you know this person's playing seriously, and if you don't see it, then, not saying they wouldn't, but they're less likely to be, Whereas if a new player sees a Mana Crypt come down turn one, they can say, "Whoa, slow down. Let's scoop up and talk about this some more and really get back on the same level." You can do that, restart the game quickly without ever really needing to worry about getting super far in and getting stomped, right? Like that's the kind of thing that Mana Crypt can do, at least from a more casual perspective, which I tend to lead towards. But yeah, this ban, I don't get this ban. I kind of hate it, actually. I think it's a really bad ban.
Yeah, I also kind of like, in your type of discussion, I think if you just tell a very, like, even if the guy only brought one deck and it's competitive, it's like most MTG people, especially people who play in the more competitive, who want to actually have more people to compete against, they're willing, oh, I'm not going to do this to you, I'll help you, and this is kind of how you can describe.
Yeah, we'll be bros.
So how do you want to do this? So the way I would do this is I would play this Mana Crypt, and then I would tap this to play the Soul Ring, and then I play my Arcane Signet, and I blah 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 in this order, because this is the way it does it. And he's not necessarily using it to win. Using it as a learning tool, and hopefully he's not just trying to curb stomp you, which is a problem for some areas. But like most of the time, if you say, "Hey, I'm playing this more competitive deck," they'll say, "Okay, I'd rather not," or they'll usually say yes. So, yeah, it just doesn't make sense.
So
yeah, I think we've beat the horse a little bit on Mana Crypt.
Mm-hmm.
I guess I have touched it a little bit on Jeweled Lotus, but Jeweled Lotus doesn't make sense to ban here. If you're gonna, I think for the rules committee to go after these printed for commander cards, and basically it makes it a useless card, because I don't know if there's any other format out there that uses commanders, and in that case, it's just a 0-drop artifact that does nothing.
It's Oathbreaker legal, I guess. I don't know.
So there is some synergy with Jeweled Lotus and Doubling Cube simply because of the function of the card. It was seeing some very fringe Legacy play, I believe. We're talking like it's like a jank deck that wins because no one expects it. It's basically, so because of the way Doubling Cube works, because it doubles your mana, it's effectively a mana filter. So it basically removes the restriction on your initial 3 mana. So it's a very fast glass cannon deck which Legacy does tend to breed. But what I don't really understand is this whole, if you create a card for Commander, why are so many of them getting banned? This is maybe more of a fundamental issue on the Wizard side, but it seems like every single card except for Mana Crypt, which Mana Crypt's one of the oldest cards in the game, and one of the most, it's a very, not infamous, but it's a very famous card in all of Magic's history. The other 3 were all designed to be in Commander. Like all those other 3.
Mm-hmm.
And they got banned.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it's shows the fact that maybe Wizards should stop designing cards directly for Commander, because the way they're doing it is simply just too much. Also, one note for you, David. Jeweled Lotus is banned in Oathbreaker, so it has no use in Oathbreaker either.
Oh, you can't even do it there. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's brutal. Uh,
So
but
it's only legal in Legacy and Vintage.
that's so the card's worthless then, basically. Like
Essentially.
if you pull the Jeweled Lotus, you can't play it ever. And there's a lot of cards in Magic's history that are like that, sure, but like still, this is probably the most. It's such blatant. Like I get the feeling that this ban was a statement to Wizards to say stop designing cards for Commander, stop doing this because we end up with situations like this. Like and the other two bans on this list will also go towards that as well. But I just I don't like the idea of impacting players' play experience for what seems to me at least like a political move to enforce their will upon the design decisions of Wizards. I don't think that's fair.
And I do actually want to touch on this before we get even deeper into this. I do not like the timing. They could have waited a quarter until January or February to release this ban announcement. Like, this isn't modern, legacy, or vintage or standard, which is actually in a pretty good place right now. It's not like those formats where they need to be updated every once in a while. You can wait to ban these cards. Like, for example, Jeweled Lotus was also could have been in your Commander Masters collector booster that came in the Festival in the box. Ixalan just reprinted Mana Crypt.
Yeah.
Dockside was also printed in Commander Masters.
Modern Horizons 3 just came out not too long ago, and that's where Nadu was printed, and it hasn't even been around for a full year.
Well, Nadu's a more complicated issue. We'll discuss that in a little bit, but that's that. It seems like they could have waited, and I know that waiting sometimes isn't the best thing, but like let people enjoy their cards. I'm one of those people. I'm like, I wanted to play with Mana Crypt because I'm like, finally, I get to use this in a deck that it works in a deck that I want to be competitive in, and now I can't.
Well,
it's gonna look good in the binder. But
I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit here and say there's new people pulling these kinds of cards every day. Like, there's never going to be an ideal time to do it.
I just think right now was the worst time they could have done this.
It was certainly a bad time to do it, but I don't think it was like I'm trying to figure out if it could be worse, and I think the answer would be probably yes. There probably would be a worse time.
Wizards prints cards now, but
it would have had the worst time would have been if like right in the middle of Commander Masters,
either Commander Masters or like literally just before the release of Modern Horizons 3.
Yeah,
or right after Ixalan, because that's when they reprinted Mana Crypt.
Yep.
Yeah.
But so there were worse times to do it, but there's never a good time to do it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Just better and worse. So,
yeah,
that's semantics. But yeah, brutal banning.
One last note on Jeweled Lotus. If you just for the people that care about the financial value, the value of Jeweled Lotus dropped by 50% in the last couple of days.
Not surprising.
It was originally had peaked out at $120, and as soon as the bans were announced, it's now sitting at 55, and it's only going to continue to drop likely. So if you are one of those people that's holding on to copies upon copies of Jeweled Lotus, you probably should offload those because it's not likely to get unbanned. They don't unban cards from the ban list in EDH very often.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's the whole reason why the CEDH was considering breaking off. It's because they wanted more cards unbanned.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, I'm more on the you shouldn't ban things unless they're proven to be a problem. Like for example, Flash was an actual problem in EDH. I'm trying to think. I'm not in favor of most of these bans. It's sort of like why I don't think Primetime should be on the ban list anymore.
Yeah.
But we have an entire video discussing the ban list.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a couple videos actually about that.
We do. Let's move on now to to Dockside Extortionist next. This is the second of the design for commander cards. I don't know. I think sure, like shrug. I neither like nor hate this card, and I neither care nor don't care that it's banned. I think there are worse cards than Dockside. Nadu was certainly worse, but I don't know. I'm kind of this one's hard to evaluate for me because I see why it's banned. I don't really know how it'll affect games though.
I think really what it does in the process of banning it, if you look at the CDH community for a second, there are entire like combo loops that revolve around killing and reviving a Dockside Extortionist.
Yeah,
there are whole
CDH has a big
strategies.
problem with that now.
Sure.
There's whole strategies designed around get Dockside and then copy the fuck out of Dockside, make as many clones or whatever as you can to benefit the most off of it because CDH has a lot of artifact ramp everywhere. So you get the most bang for your buck out of Dockside in a more competitive format like that. In a more casual setting, not everybody runs artifacts as heavily as they do in the competitive formats.
Sure.
Because from at least from my experiences and from what I've seen online and everything like that, if you play a Dockside, it's usually not nearly as impactful in a casual setting. So for it's another targeted ban towards CDH.
Yeah, I was gonna ask that. Is like, so
Yeah.
you're saying this is another CDH specific ban? More or
Yeah,
less.
the problem is there's like also like the whole like the C80H meta, like for the best decks in the tier 0 formats are essentially Grixis Plus, and Thoracle and Dockside are two of the reasons why.
I want to sidebar here and wonder how in the hell Thassa's Oracle escaped this list.
I really don't know.
I am so curious about that. Like,
I
what
don't
was
get
their-
it because it's everywhere.
what
It's
was
literally
their
everywhere.
thinking there of saying Thoracle is fine, Mana Crypt is not, Jeweled Lotus is not, Dockside is not. I don't like. Like, I
I'm of
get
the
the fast
mindset-
mana wins you the game. Yes, I'm fully aware of that concept. But Thassa's Oracle is like the most blatant combo outlet on planet Earth. Why is that still allowed to exist?
Yeah. I think I'm of the mindset that if you were going to ban Dockside, you should have banned Thoracle too.
Yes.
Because
Yeah.
I honestly don't hate the Dockside ban. Like I feel like full transparency on this one. I don't mind it because I think that Dockside was homogenizing parts of the format pretty bad. There's like if any red deck could run it, they were going to try to because it's just an advantage to have it. Again, casual settings not so much, but at least in competitive or even high powered, you're still going to get a lot more advantage out of it. And it was definitely something that people were building whole, combos and trying to plan around all the time. So it was kind of a boogeyman of the format, though it didn't really always have a huge impact. So it's one of those things where it was good, but not all the time.
Yeah, so I actually have the quarterly announcement by the rules committee. And part of the reason why it hadn't gotten banned for a while was because it scales very well with power level. Usually the lower the power level, the worse this card is. And that is true. That's why it's never been a problem in casual, really.
So
'Cause,
why
like-
ban it then? Like, is it just because the spike at the top of the level is just that high? Like,
Well, it is in exponential curve on that power level.
sure,
Which I can see why they did it.
but I can think of a ton of cards that are like that cost
Yeah.
as much as Dockside though. Like, I don't see
Yeah,
what makes Dockside special here.
Yeah, I agree with that because that's why I'm pretty anti-banning most things, and why I think some of the other bans like Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus are neutering decks. Like you just make Godo 10 times harder to play in CEDH, it used to be the fastest deck in the format. Now it's so much slower.
Yeah.
It's kind of remarkable how much slower it is.
It's going to struggle to find a way to get its footing back.
you lost effectively 5 mana of your 11 mana you need to win the game.
Which maybe isn't a bad thing, but that's neither here nor there.
But it also affects other monocolor commanders too, because that's actually what Jeweled Lotus actually helped with. And we're not going back on Jeweled Lotus.
Lotus and Dockside both helped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it helped monocolors almost more than multicolors. Granted, Dockside makes treasures, so it's... But like Jeweled Lotus was like, okay, I can play my... It enables you to play like different of the one color commanders that are in the higher power formats, which I'm interested to see how that format develops after these bans. It's going to take a while for them to rebound. But
All right, so well, let's move on down to the last ban of this list here. That would be Nadu Winged Wisdom.
So I have one thing to say about this ban.
Yeah,
You ban this, but you don't ban Shulane.
you don't ban Thrasios, but you ban this? Really? Like,
all I have to say is fuck this card. Okay, like this card is just.
Oh no, this is
worst.
non-deterministic as hell. It's
like most True Lane or Thrasios decks have a deterministic combo in them. They can go for a while, yes, but this is way worse because especially if you're having to play with people can respond at any point kind of things where you're like, oh, do you have responses? No responses. I do this.
Yeah.
No responses. Then it gets really, really finicky where you could have a 45-minute turn that you think you're about to win and then nothing happens. And
I mean, yeah, from the actual gameplay perspective, I see why this is banned, but from a power standpoint, no, I don't get it because Thrasios is stronger. I think Tulane is stronger. Both are iconic commanders in their respective colors. Thrasios is way more ridiculous than this card is because Thrasios has partner. You can partner it with some of the other best commanders in Magic. Like,
so have you seen any gameplay footage or anything like that for while this card's in play?
It's miserable.
It is. From a gameplay feel standpoint, I totally understand this ban. I'm just saying if banning this card on a power level standpoint is weak. But I think their reasoning was that it was because it was non-deterministic.
Well, because there's a million different builds.
Yeah, what's the reasoning, Sherry? What did they say from the rules committee?
Okay, this is actually a pretty long one, so I'm going to skim over real quick.
Sure.
Okay, here's another ban, but it's explosive in a different way. Given that Nadu Winged Wisdom has been ejected from multiple formats, which is true because it's also been it broke Modern. It's one of the most successful Modern cards of all time.
Near instantly got banned in Modern.
Yeah, it got like I think it was like a 60% win rate at a GP or something like that. It was something like that's like never happened
approaching
before.
Hogak levels right there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think if I remember, I think it was like 6 or 7 of 8 in one of the qualifiers was Nadu.
Jesus,
it was pretty gross. So it has been ejected, and it's no surprise we took a close look at it. Commander sometimes has hugely problematic cards that are in other formats, Oko or Companions, are fine in Commander, but our observations of Nadu suggest its inherent play patterns are going to cause problems. Part of the problem is the way that Nadu wins, where it takes really long time to do a non-deterministic sequences that cannot be shortcut and must be eventually fizzle out. These are not dedicated combo lines that you look to build a deck around. It's dropping Nadu into a Simic shell that still runs the risk of grinding the game down to a slog of resource accrual. It badly interacts with cards that are staples of casual play, notably Lightning Greaves, meaning that decks where it gets thrown into without the intent of abuse can still create a situation where you're monopolizing the entire table's time. It is not experience we want to risk. So Nadu itself gets banned. Okay, and I just looked up a CEDH primer of this.
Mm-hmm.
It might be one of the grossest deck lists I've ever looked at in my life.
It's terrible.
It is a control shell with a draw card. It's like just drawing cards and a control shell. It is gross.
Okay. Yeah.
Like it's like 30 counter spells basically.
Yeah, but
So
for the record, this is the ban I'm the most okay with. Um,
yeah,
but I think this goes back to my theory of the rules committee laying down a very firm line with Wizards with this ban, saying stop designing these cards for Commander because these new interactions you keep adding keep breaking the format in ways we don't approve of.
what
Like,
is interesting about the backstory of this card is the reason it has that second line of text was for Commander because they didn't think doing it once was enough. For this because I think it was like an ETB trigger when it started, and it got a last minute add to what it is now, and now it's
and now it's a,
three-mana.
it's a blight.
It's gross.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that this one's probably out of the 4 cards. This is one that is an actual proper band. Like this, I'm okay with this ban. I've been for a Nadu ban for a while now. Like, I know I haven't played Magic in a while, but just seeing the footage of it played in on the other tables, even on a casual table, it's still like a brutal experience because everybody is just kind of having to sit there and watch this person play solitaire for a while, and that's coming from somebody that has a deck that plays solitaire. Don't get me wrong. It's awful.
Yeah, the power level of this card is to the point where even like there were jokes that going around that they were going to ban this card if from modern tournaments if Wizards wasn't like the actual tournament organizers were like we can't do this. It's weird. You have 3 cards that go together, and then you have Nadu. Nadu deserves to get banned, but then they didn't. Then we'll talk about this one more time. Thoracle is somehow still not on the ban list.
Thoracle survives again.
And that will be our biggest complaint of this ban, the set of bans here.
No, that's a more joking complaint. My actual I hate these bands. I hate 3 out of 4 of these bands very much. I don't get this. I think this was shotgun, ill thought through. Apparently, there were some people on the Commander Advisory Group that weren't even consulted on this.
Most of the group was not informed about these decisions.
Yes.
And some of these decisions were not even full agreements either. So like some of the people only agreed to maybe 2 of these bans, but because like a majority of the rules committee agreed to this, that means people are receiving undue hate for these decisions that were made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Again,
also,
leave people alone.
this is something I'm just hearing about now. The rules committee said that the KEG wasn't consulted to prevent leaks. Which I would, if I were a member of the KEG, I'd be pretty insulted by that because you're brought there because you have some level of discretion that you can be trusted. So basically saying we can't trust you is very insulting.
Yeah, and actually, this is the first time Magic News might be actually breaking something. Breaking news. So I was perusing the annals of Twitter, now known as X, and I had found out right before we recorded that Josh Lee Kwai has left the CAG, and Josh has been a member for almost, I think it's 5 years now.
Since 2019.
And I can't imagine it was a respectful letter that he gave because he is a very respectable guy, but it's like this can't be a coincidence of why he is leaving because he was very frustrated about these bans right after releasing it. And I think the fact that they weren't consulted, that the advisory group wasn't consulted for sake of leaks. If you're really that concerned about leaks, you should trim out some of the CAG.
No, I'm speaking just don't have the KEG if you're that concerned about secrecy. Don't ask for input from people who play the game, frankly, more regularly than you because it's their job to, right? The reasoning is so baffling, and it's a complete misfire from the rules committee. Sheldon never would have allowed that,
No.
It's
kind of
very coincidental that it's after his death. Sheldon did he did amazing things for this game, and I think he kept a lot of things from getting banned. I think he is more on the line of Rule Zero is should be king, and I think we're finally past the plot where it's Rule Zero is starting to disappear because people can't police themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know.
That's a different discussion.
Yeah. I just this is brutal. This is a brutal thing to happen to the game. And it has nothing to do with the financial implication or the competitive implication. I don't give a shit about any of that. But I'm speaking more in terms of trust in the format. I don't think it's ever been lower.
No, definitely not. There's a lot of people I've seen online that are saying they're just going to step away from Commander as a whole now. Like there were people that were already on the edge, but now with these bans, they're straight up going to just give up. They're going to go do something else. They're going to play Modern, or they're going to play Vintage, or whatever Legacy.
Or they may just not play Magic altogether.
Yeah, because
like that's certainly a possibility.
For some people like myself, all I have are Commander decks. So like if I become grifted enough with it, I will straight up stop playing Magic altogether. Which, granted, we don't play Magic very much right now, but that's neither here nor there.
That's more of about the living situation that we have, and and the fact that some of us have had to move very recently again.
Yeah,
I've been on the fence for Commander a lot, and now I've actually this is kind of giving me the push to get into the Modern and Legacy, because those formats are
Pauper.
I mean, I'm up for that. I'm always been game to do Pauper Commander.
Yeah,
that's its own cool little format that exists. So maybe we'll do deck tech on that sometime.
Yeah, I do have a Pauper Commander deck featuring some good old fashioned slivers that we love to see.
That is a gross deck, but it's so fun.
Isn't it great? But yeah, if I keep playing Commander, I'm not going to go by what the rules committee says. Rule Zero will always be the priority, not what the rules committee bans are. I will play outside their desire. I will play Silver Border cards. I'll play Biorhythm. I'll play Coalition Victory. As long as I'm not in a LGS, which I normally don't play in ever. Some
LGSs kind of they encourage the Rule Zero, or they even allow a lot, because they now know that it's they people are going to play with them anyway, and just pretend they didn't know, and then not take it out of their decks. So they're just sort of we recommend this, but as long as you're kind of discreet about it, whatever.
Yeah, just a brutal announcement. Lot of implications going forward. We have to see how the format settles. But I think there's definitely going to be some disillusionment with everything going on.
Yeah. Anyway, that's why we think Magic is dead.
Well, we had other reasons, but
this is one of the reasons.
It certainly killed it a little bit.
Yeah. It's that ever-moving goalpost of the Magic is dead, and it's always going to be what kills it next.
We are the Magic doomers of our generation. Let it be known.
Well, thanks. For anyone who made it to the end of this video, I'm not going to say you probably enjoyed this. You probably had some doomer attitudes like we did. Please like, share, and subscribe. We also, sorry for some of the distance between some of our uploads. Some of us have been moving and had to change jobs. So it's been a fairly busy summer for all of us. So thank you for coming in to listen again, and we hope you tune in next time.
Bye-bye.
Bad boys.